All right, all right. All right, all right, all right. So, greetings, 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 and good afternoon. My name is Michelle Portier. This is Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. And I am the host of the hour. I am a U.S. Navy veteran, life recovery coach, speaker, author, but most importantly, I'm an advocate. And I advocate for causes such as domestic assault, sexual violence, and military sexual trauma, and those that have encountered mental health challenges due secondary to trauma. And the reason that I'm so passionate about it is because of my own history. And so, in light of last month being Sexual Assault Awareness Month, we kicked off this series, and we're continuing this month in light of Mental Health Awareness Month because the two are connected. Anybody that's encountered any kind of trauma, especially sexual trauma, usually encounters some challenges with mental health. So, in light of that, we are highlighting individuals that have not only endured, but have overcome and have turned their tragedies into triumphs. And so today we have with you a very special guest. And also, she is a fellow veteran, and she's the friend of another fellow veteran by how we met. Um, our paths have intersected here and there over the last couple of years. But here at the end, the latter part of last year in December, we had a very profound time and experience. And in that, this is the thing that I want to highlight. As women and as women veterans, we carry so much, and we wear this mask of strength that no one would even know the things that we've endured. And as long as I've known Ruby, and as long as Ruby has known me, I was not aware that she had also endured military sexual trauma. And so, when we were embarking upon this trip, getting ready to get on the road to Texas, driving 17 hours, we do what we do, whatever the obstacle is, we're going to make the most out of it. And what was funny to me is we had a challenge in getting the lock off of one of the storage that we were trying to trying to get off so that we could load the truck to actually get on the road. But come hell or high water, we made a way. We found a way to get that storage, that lock unlocked. And so anyhow, that's just one of many memorable moments that I have with Ruby. But I don't want to stay focused on how we met. I really want to get into the heart of the matter, because this is something that is continuing to be prevalent, and it impacts the lives of not only those that have been personally impacted by it, but their friends and loved ones. And so, without further ado, I want to introduce you to Ms. Ruby Williams. I want to thank you so much for agreeing to come on and share this journey with you. So welcome, Ms. Ruby.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, that was quite the trip. Thank you for bringing me on.
My pleasure. So to get right into it, Ruby, for my listening audience, tell us, who is Ruby Williams personally, professionally, and spiritually?
Okay, so I am a mother and a grandmother, believe it or not, to some amazing people who are my strength, my source, my motivation for overcoming the things that I've endured in life. So that's a little bit about who I am as from a maternal perspective. I am a nurse. I am a Navy veteran, as you've already said. I am a forensic nurse examiner, a domestic violence counselor, and I'm also a military sexual trauma and domestic violence survivor. Professionally, like I said, I'm a nurse, and I'm also a nurse residency instructor, clinical instructor, and a manager over an amazing instructing team. And it's one of the best things in the world, between that and my military career and being a parent. And it's amazing. And yeah, very busy. A personal fitness trainer. I am a CEO of a personal fitness, lifestyle coaching, and mentoring company. And but first and foremost, I'm a child of God, and I'm a Christian.
Well, thank you so much. So there you have it. You know who a little bit about a portion of who Ruby is personally, professionally, and spiritually. And as we get into it, you're going to learn more and more about this very powerful, driven, determined, courageous woman. And so I want to give you a little bit of a background about, for those of you that aren't familiar with military sexual trauma and the repercussions. Currently, as of 2018, the statistics indicate that over 20,000 members have been affected by it. 13,000 of those being women and 7,500 being men. So it's something that is very prevalent. And some things that many don't know is that there are repercussions for those that come forward. And so for some of the repercussions, is 64% of women that make the decision to come forward face retaliation. 66% of those retaliation reports um, allege that their perpetrators were within their chain of command. A third of survivors are often discharged in an average about 7 months from the time that they choose to disclose. Um, and they're discharged harshly. So 24% of those that are discharged after they have made the allegation or reported being violated sexually by a fellow service member end up getting dishonorably discharged. And so there is a fear of reprisal for a lot of that prevent a lot of survivors from coming forward. And I'm speaking predominantly regarding women, but we also have a lot of men that have been violated or assaulted as well. And so just wanted to give you a point of perspective from why we're addressing this and why we're continuing to raise the clarion call and give women and men back their power that have lost their power because of this atrocity that happened while they were serving their country. And so, Ruby, that takes me into my next question.
Yes.
How have you been impacted by your experiences of assault in the service?
Well, I served in two separate branches. So I was assaulted in my Army enlisted service, active duty service, and then again as a naval officer, nurse corps officer in my Navy service. So it has changed me. You know, it changed me, and which trauma does, it changes you. And
Right.
so psychologically, physically, um, I've endured health issues because of the trauma, the physical, as well as um, the
Mentally.
sexual trauma, the mental, emotional. Um, I'm guarded. I have difficulty in relationships, be it family relationships, relationships with intimacy,
Mhm.
um, even in just common everyday work settings.
Right.
Um, so
So what
it's
are
just changed me a lot.
so what are some of the things that you've experienced? You said, as far as the day to day, how you interact day to day, how has it impacted your relationships and your ability, your friendships, but your ability to be able to have an intimate relationship?
Well, first and foremost, one of the things that a lot of people that have experienced any type of trauma, but specifically sexual traumas, military sexual trauma, I have PTSD,
Mhm.
and I have anxiety, depression. It kind of goes along with that, and so that in itself changes the way I view relationships in
Mhm.
general, or my ability to enter into relationships. And this is just like on a day-to-day basis. I mean, a typical day for me is like, one, I do not go to public stores often. If I go, it is because there is no other means of me getting whatever that item is by
Mhm.
being it mailed to me. Amazon became my best friend. Shipped, Instacart, my buddies,
Right.
because they help me to be able to continue to function, but also avoid some of the triggers
Mhm.
um, that I know are triggers for me.
And what
Um,
was how long did it take you for you to be able to identify what those triggers were, and then
oh,
how you
wow.
managed them?
Well, first, I was in denial for a
Mhm.
very, very long time. So, um, not only was I in denial, but I did not tell anyone in my close circle, my mom, my brothers, my sisters, my children know a little bit, but no details. They just know that it occurred, but they don't know any details. And most of my friends have no idea because, as you said, we put on these masks of protection to kind of help ourselves to do what we do on a daily basis. But yeah, so.
So how did it impact how you showed up as a mother?
Oh, wow. So I was a young mom and got married right out of high school to my high school sweetheart and endured some domestic violence during that. So then I became a single mom in the military. So I was already very protective of my children. But after this occurred, I became, wow, as my daughter terms it, the helicopter, the hovering mother. So I need to know where they were. And I mean, they were glued to me at the hip. They did every social activity you can believe, but I was the den mom, the coach, the basketball coach, the football coach. I never played football.
Right.
Whatever it was, I was going to be there to make sure that they didn't get denied any of those exposures or experiences, but that I was there to guard them, really, just to constantly be a guard for them. But it did cause us to have a more open rhetoric with each other. So, like, literally, they told me everything and still do. Some things you're just like, I don't need to know this, but they told you anyway.
I can definitely resonate with that. I have a similar relationship with my daughter, and I can say, that after my own experience, I was very overly protective, almost smothering of her, and
Oh, yeah.
trusted no one. Not my family, not too much my friends. You know,
Yeah.
even to a certain degree, I had a certain level of distrust for her dad, but we overcame that. And so,
Right.
but that's just some of the fallout from the experiences that we've had. And so, with that being said, so what are some of the challenges you encounter, not just in your intimate relationships, but your friendships, like, and how you show up in the world in your professional life? I know a while back you were telling me of an incident that occurred, when you were on, in your position that you're in now. So share a little bit about how that impacts.
Oh, wow. So, one of the people that are listening today was present for this little event happening, and I say little event, but it almost was a big event. We were in a meeting in Florida for my job, and a manager. So I'm in a leadership role. So everybody kind of looks at us because there's only a few of us, and I'm the only one that kind of looks like me in this role too. And plus,
Right.
I'm kind of like that person that says what they need to say when they need to say it. Otherwise, I have this big smile most of the time and just kind of taking it all in. So one of the leaders was trying to corral the group and get us all to like kind of calm down, be quiet. I was doing my smile, but irritated, like, okay, you guys shut up so we can get this over with. Well, he came in and he had found this big cowbell. And so he started ding, 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 ding. I did not see him because he was coming in behind me. And oh my goodness, I went into immediate panic, fight or flight mode. And I was like, you have got to stop ringing that bell. And he was like kind of laughing, but he's the boss, right? Like he's the
Right.
big boss. He's the big boss. And so I'm like, you have got to stop this. So he's laughing. And I got up and just like literally ran out of the room to the bathroom because
Mm-hmm.
I was just like shaking. My heart rate was racing. I was sweating. I was embarrassed. I was angry. Oh my goodness. I was so angry to the point that like I knew I needed to leave because I was at that point where I wanted to run over and just kind of bless him and lay hands, but I knew that wasn't appropriate. But someone did tell him, hey, you're really setting somebody off. And he kind of put the bell away. So, without going into detail, very respectful, very considerate, but it was embarrassing for me because that was my first time ever, as I say, really losing it amongst
Right.
my peers that I work with on a daily basis. Usually I'm really good at like nobody ever knows that I, deal with this on a daily basis. So
So that's one of the struggles of dealing, with the repercussions or the aftermath of, what happened. And
Yeah.
how long have
Um,
you how long has it been since you've been out of the service? And you don't have to go into details if you don't want to, but when did your incident occur? And then how long did it take for you to begin to learn to function again, other than just being in survival mode?
I've been out of the military since December 2015. I retired, 23 years active duty. The
Thank you.
first, thank you, and thank you for your service. The first event happened when I was just out of boot camp. So that would have been 89, December 89. And the second event happened when I was a new nurse corps officer, and that was in 2001. And it was just a little bit before, I want to say it was a little bit before 9/11, I believe it
Mm-hmm.
was. So I can really say that I don't think I even allowed myself to focus on what it really meant to me, because at that point I was just trying to, like, this didn't happen.
Right.
It was my fault. Maybe I misunderstood what happened. Obviously, I did not, because there were both people that were in positions of authority.
Right.
And I was so, well, it was a different time. So you did not feel comfortable reporting that to anyone. One, there was no way of reporting it back then, because up until, I would say, 2003, when I had the opportunity to be on an IG panel where we investigated around all the military branches, the reports that the Marines were saying they were being assaulted out, in war zones. Nobody even believed it happened. I mean, they would deny it. This is a good sailor, a good soldier,
Mhm. And so,
you're mess. Mhm.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go
No,
ahead.
it's okay. They're a good leader, career person. You're running their life. Get over it. Maybe, are you sure that you didn't cause this? What were you wearing? So, knowing all those things. And I was a victim's advocate.
Mhm.
So, I knew what it did, the re-victimization. So I was really terrified to deal
So
with
there
it.
was an attempt to minimize it
Oh,
and
most
kind of
definitely.
discredit you rather than, or
Yeah.
discredit the individual rather than believing them and supporting them.
Yeah.
So with that being said, that was the first incident. There was another incident. How long between the first and the second? What kind of time lapse? And then how did that further affect how you show up?
So the first time would have been in 89, and the second time was in 2001. So I had had a break in service and went back to school, got my nursing degree. And um, so after that, how it showed up for me, I guess, was the moment when we had come to the point where Congress has said we needed to have this program where we are allowing people to report or unreport, but still get health care. And I was like, yes, that's the role for me. So I was helping people every day, doing these exams on them, teaching other people how to do the exams, NCIS agents, CI, criminal investigation. I was doing all of that with them, being an expert witness, testifying. And then I was in a case where there was it was a Marine case down at Paris Island, and the defense attorney is a famous attorney. I won't say his name, but he was in the movie with Jack Nicholson, You Can't Handle the Truth. So he was
Right.
that guy. And so he's this huge, menacing guy. And so
Right.
he's coming down the hallway, and literally the floor, because it's a wood floor, was rattling. And I could feel like the hairs going up on my arm. I was so intimidated. But he was so
Mhm.
arrogant, confidence, but arrogance to me. And so he was like, everybody was like, "Hi, can I get your autograph?" And I was like, "You need to get my autograph." So, so I'm like, no, he's not going to intimidate me. He's not going to scare me. I'm going to stand up and fight for this victim. And I think that was the turning point for me to say, you know what? My story needs to be told. I need to let people know it's not just them. They're not alone. So that was kind of the pivotal point, and it was in 2017. So quite some time that I've had to kind of put this stuff under the covers of hiding, denying.
So before I ask um, my next question, I want to ask a question to you personally because I see that you showed up and you started advocating for others. But were you able or did you report either one of your incidents? And then if you didn't, why or why
No,
not?
no, I didn't because in the last event that happened, it was a very high official,
Hmm.
and I was threatened physically. My family was threatened. My career was threatened. And I did not want to be known as that person connected to that person because typically what happens is the person gets more attention of defense. And
Hmm.
then the victim gets left in the backside. And
Hmm.
that was not how I wanted my story to play out. And I decided that I wanted to advocate and show up in a different way. And I've come to a point now where I remember it as something that'll never go away. It's not like I ever forget it, but
Right.
the impact that it has on my life now, I'm no longer fearful. Matter of fact, I feel sad about it, but I don't feel ashamed about it. So,
So there's no more shame.
no, no, I mean, it happened. It wasn't my fault. And you know what? I need to let other people know it's not your fault.
And that takes a lot of strength and a lot of courage to come to that because it's difficult for some to even get to that point. And I wanted to reiterate, some of the repercussions. That's why many opt not to come forward because of the repercussions. Because
Yeah.
64%,
Excuse
you
me.
know, of those that report they face retaliation, such
Hmm.
as such as you did.
Yeah.
There was the threat to your life, the threat to your family's life. You didn't want to be labeled, you didn't want it to affect your career. But let me ask you this question. Did it end up affecting your career or did it not?
It did. It did affect my career in the sense that it caused me to lose confidence in the
Hmm.
organization that I had become to know as an opportunity for me to be able to provide something greater for my children, which
Hmm.
I mean, I was able to do that, and that's a great avenue to be able to do that. And it was good for me. I got to see more of the world than most of my family will ever see in their entire existence.
Right.
And but it did. Because of that, I turned down my next level of promotion because I just was at that point of enough of this. I need to be able to make an impact without feeling like I have to be censored in what I could say as a higher ranking nurse corps officer in the
Hmm.
Navy. And I knew that in order for me to do that, I was going to have to leave what had become my lifelong career and move into a different aspect that I felt like was going to help me to continue to grow, but also to free myself. So yeah, it did affect my career in that sense
In
and my
what
life.
way? In what ways were you being censored? Were you being censored in the respect of advocating for those that had experienced the trauma, or
Yeah.
and what did that look like?
So I was when I first showed up at my final duty station, I basically went to our executive officer, second in charge, and our commanding officer, and I said, "Hey, this program, Congress has said we need to have this program. I want to start it." And I was told emphatically, "Absolutely not. Not going to happen. We will not be doing that." And I'm like, "But
And what
um,
was there a reason given, or was it just a no?
there's not enough interest here. We don't really have a problem with it here. And we don't have enough people to support it." So I said, well, I'll support it. Well, I was
Right.
working full time in another role at that time, actually two youth roles. I was a division officer for the women's clinic, and then I was also working in labor and delivery as a charge nurse on evening shift and educator. And so I said, you know what, I'll do it. I don't care. I'll come and do it, in the evenings, or I'll come in and be on call. And so eventually, a friend of mine who ended up working directly under the attorney general contacted me and said, hey, it's time to start that program there. And so I talked to the attorney general, and you're going to be that person. So it came down from way up high to my
Mhm.
leadership. And when I tell you there was anger, there was anger, there was a lot of retribution in the sense that I actually had health problems and I'd had an injury to my leg when I was in the Army, and I had fallen and basically had to have this surgery and develop this traumatic illness, this pain syndrome where I could not walk. So I was on a scooter. So literally I'm scooting around on this scooter everywhere, and they're still trying to put me on duty, and I'm like, really? So yeah,
So,
I got a lot of retribution from it.
right. And how did you handle that? How did you turn that around? Like you've already shared what some of the obstacles, that you've run into in your effort to minimize the negative effects. So how did you handle that retribution? How were you able to continue to?
Well, one, I got my physician who was caring for me, who did my surgery. I got my pain anesthesiologist involved, my physical therapist, our mutual friend, helped me a lot with that. And she was like, "No, they're not going to do this to you, and I'm going to go talk to the commander." And so with everybody coming together, they wrote a letter to the CO, the commanding officer, the head, and they were like, "Nope, she's not going to be on duty." And so I was able to do this. And at first it was like, you're not going to get an office. And then I was given this little dinky little closet that when I tell you it smelled so bad. I don't know what had been in that room, but it died, whatever it was. It wasn't human. It was some animal. I don't know. The floor was like this dingy yellow film. And so our friend at Sandra, I'll say her name. She was like, "That's okay. I'll get the chiefs to help you." And so
Right.
the chiefs came in there, and man, they had that place stripped and clean. I got furniture. My office was so nice. They were like, "Ruby has an apartment in the in the hospital," and people were coming down to see it. So that's kind of what I did. I dug in. I talked to my pastor, and and definitely prayed a lot, cried a lot, released a lot, leaned on my friends, and really just kind of had to accept help, which wasn't something I was used to doing. I was a person that provided help. So that's really how I got through it. And I just persevered and decided, you know what? No, not anymore. I refuse to be a victim anymore. I'm not just going to survive. I'm going to overcome this and
Mhm.
I'm going to conquer it. And so that's basically what I
So
did.
talk to me more about realizing that you needed to, as much as you were giving and you were helping, that you needed to receive help. How challenging was that? And what did that look like as far as,
That was hard.
especially, yeah.
It was really hard. It was a lot of not sleeping, crying, uh, just angry at everything all the time because I'm not a victim. This don't
Right,
happen to me. I grew
right.
up in a tough neighborhood. I mean, as a little kid, I was bullied because I was this little string bean kid. Matter of fact, my nickname was Olive Oil and Tomato on a Toothpick. I don't know. They said my head was big, and so I looked like a tomato on a toothpick. So, I got into boxing, martial arts, and weaponry, and you name it. These things didn't happen to me. So it was hard for me to face it, but I had another young lady that I ended up having to do her examination and case with her. And I
Mhm,
saw her over a matter of maybe 2, 3 months. And I
mhm,
think interacting with her just showed me how much I needed to get help myself. And so
mhm.
that was kind of like the turning point for me to do it. And at that point, I just like, okay, Lord, I need you to guide me because, I can't do this on my own. So that's what I did. I just turned it all over to him and said, wherever this takes me, he's got me. So I'm going to get through it because he's brought me through everything else.
And so, what did that help look like for you? In addition to, I know your faith is the foundational thing. I'm the
I went and
same.
saw, yeah,
I'm the same way, but for someone who may be struggling or straddling the fence with, you know, not wanting to feel like that they abandon their faith, but still know that they need some additional help. Um, did you
yeah.
seek help from like a psychologist, a psychiatrist, things of
Well, I went to see first I didn't know what I needed really because I was just like it was one of those moments where I was like, I haven't eaten in probably 2 days. I hadn't slept in almost 4 days, but maybe 2 hours a night. I had
Mhm,
lost about 10 pounds. And like I had a whole lot to lose, but I had lost it. And I went to mental health, and mind you, that was hard because it was very known that if you're going to that part of the parking lot, everybody knows why you're there. And
Right.
so I was also a trainer in the command, so I was very well known by people. They recognized me as that and as the sexual assault examiner. And
Mhm.
so when I walk in the door, how you doing, ma'am? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, okay. I wanted to turn around and go back out. But there was a line behind me, and I turn around and see one of the people that I had done an exam. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm gonna do this. And so I walk up to the desk, and the sailor was like, ma'am, do you need to speak to someone? I'm like, yes. He says, now, because he could see it in my face. And I said, yeah. And he said, I don't think we have an appointment. And then the chief walked out, and they were like, I'll give me a second. So they went back, the psychiatrist came out, and they did the whole, are you safe? Do you feel like you want to hurt yourself, hurt anyone else? Blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't do anything. I'm just like a puddle of tears. And at that moment, the person just sat there with me and talked to me and said, I'm going to be here with you. Don't
Mhm.
worry. I'm going to help you get through this. And yes, so absolutely. So that turned into me getting past my stigma that our culture has been, and I say, convinced that mental health is not important, that you
Mhm.
don't take meds, you're not praying enough, you're not strong enough in your faith. There's something wrong
Exactly.
with you if you need help. And so I did. I ended up going on medication for anxiety and depression, and I started going to see my psychologist and then eventually going into group therapy, where I still am in right now.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so that's what it showed up. I actually do what's called prolonged exposure therapy right now, and
Right.
it's a series of video connect sessions. So it's really been helpful.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really wanted to highlight that and bring that out, um, because for a lot of individuals that encounter the sexual trauma and dealing with all of the shame and the guilt and the pointing of the fingers and the persecution that you receive,
Yeah.
especially those that have a spiritual foundation, it is very challenging to go and seek help. And you're being told, you don't have enough faith. What goes on at home should stay at home. We need to keep this in house. We need to know. We have to be able to remove the mask. You have to be able to be transparent and be vulnerable to be able to get the help that you need. So I just want to again say that I commend you for being brave enough to share with others, how you've come through and how you've turned this tragic event in your life into a triumph. And so, with that being said, what has been one of your most defining moments? Thank you so
Um, Defining moments of getting the help has
much.
been to start to express to others that, hey, I have PTSD, and not
Mhm.
feel ashamed saying that. Granted, they may not know where that comes from, or they may make their own assumptions, being that I have military background, that, that it came from that, which it did. However, just that was the opening for me to say, you know what, I need to let people know this, because otherwise, how can people help you if you're
Mhm.
not at a point where you're able to let people know that you do have a need to receive help?
Mhm.
And so I remember the day I told my current director, and I was like, hey, and I know she was totally not expecting it, and she was just talking to me, and I was like really, really mad that day. I don't know why. I was just mad about something. And so she's like, well, Ruby, you're always positive. What's going on? I was like, look, I have PTSD, and that's literally why it came out. And she's like, "Oh, okay. Well, you do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself. I want you to take care of yourself." And it was genuine. I could tell it was like a shock, but at the same time, I could tell that she felt honored that
Mhm.
I did let her know that. And ever since then, I've had that support from her. She's like, "No, Ruby, I need you to take care of yourself." So once I started being able to say that out loud, then I saw it as something that says, hey, this is what this condition that I constantly deal with, but it
Mhm.
doesn't define who I am as a person. It doesn't, it doesn't take away from my ability to be what I need to be to others. It affects it, but it doesn't take it away. It doesn't
Right.
make me any less effective. Matter of fact, it makes me more effective because I am getting the help. Had I
Right.
not, then I don't think I'd be here today, because there was definitely very dark moments where I didn't want to be here anymore. And if it were not my faith and my children, I
Mhm.
probably wouldn't be. But I thank God for that, and for getting the help that I needed and that it was available.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing that. I know it can be challenging, even, speaking about it now, even though it happened all those years ago, and even though you're
Yeah,
getting the help and you have the support, it's still there. It's something that's not ever going to leave, but it's the way that
no,
you are using that as a catalyst to continue to heal and help others heal. I want to thank you so much for that. I wanted to share with you also that Susan Scott wanted to
hey, Susan.
say hi and let you know that she's watching and that she's supporting you. So thank you, Susan,
Love you,
for
Susan. She's amazing. Definitely. Really, really. She is a good friend. And like I told you, friendships are not something that I like just give out freely,
right,
and I think, I'm like, that's like an artifact that you go and look for and search for, and then you never find it. It's never going to be found. And then all of a sudden you have this amazing find. So I have a few of you. You are obviously one of those, Sandra and Susan. And then I have a couple of other people, but that's it. And I was told as a little kid, if you can have 5 people that you call a friend as
right.
an adult, you are blessed. So I consider myself to be very blessed. So thank you,
Well,
Susan, for being here and supporting me always.
so what are some insights that you can share with a female veteran or a male veteran for that matter that has encountered assault, and whether it's been reported or unreported, from your experiences, what you've learned between the time that you were initially assaulted and then the next one, and then how you've navigated your journey to healing? What insights can you provide them if they're
The
listening in today?
one thing I can say is, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Hmm.
Don't be, because nobody can help you if you always show up as the person who is impenetrable. Because I did that for many years. And what would happen is I would load so much on my shoulders because I didn't want anybody else to hurt, because of the
Hmm.
pain I was enduring on a daily basis. That what it
Right,
did was it kept on compounding, just piling on, piling on, piling on. And I'm trying to help other people heal, but I'm not sleeping at night, and I'm
right,
having night terrors, and I'm having problems eating and being in relationships with anyone.
hmm,
So ask for the help and be willing to get the help, however it needs to be for you. I don't advocate one way or the other for a person deciding if they're military or even as a civilian person, saying whether they should report or don't report this to authorities,
hmm,
because everyone knows what their capacity to be able to endure that. Because I would be lying to you if I told you that this is this society that does not victimize the victim. We all know that that is not the case. However, I will tell you that I've never been sad or disappointed because I reached out to help and told my story to someone.
hmm.
I regret that I waited so long and lost a lot of productivity in my happiness, not necessarily in my career, because I was driven. That
Right,
was kind of part of our thing, where you decide it's going to overtake you and you sink into it, or you're like, I'm going to do this, you will not conquer me. But I've
right.
never been sad to reach out for that help. So I wish I had reached out for that help earlier.
Hmm.
And I'm hoping that by speaking to others, that they will know that, you know what, there's people out there that can help you, the people like you that have walked through this path. I've been enlisted, I've been Army, I've been Navy, I've been an officer, and I know what it's like. And I've also survived domestic abuse.
Hmm.
So I know what those things are like. And I know what those things are like from a Christian perspective, where your faith is supposed to be the thing that carries you through everything, and it does. But your faith also teaches you that God knows, God gives us these people out there that can help us, but they can't help us if we don't seek that help.
Well, I wanted to highlight two things that really stood out from what you said, for anyone that is tuning in and you are on the fence about whether or not to report or not to report. From Ruby's insight, number one, be willing to ask for the help that you need. It's not a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of strength. And number two, be willing to get the help once you've been given the resources, because I think that's a barrier that many of us, especially those of you that have been in the military, I believe that is a barrier because it's instilled in us to, to complete the mission, and anything else that we have going on personally, we have to put that to the side because the goal is to complete the mission. So if you are an active duty member and you've encountered this, or if you're a veteran and you're encountering this, not only be willing to reach out to ask for help and get the resources, but use the resources. Reach out to those that you think will be able to help you. And we're going to be providing some resources at the end of this interview so that if you don't know where to start, or you don't know where to begin, or you don't know how to take that step forward, we have the resources for you. Thank you. Ruby, what are you feeling right now? I see some tearfulness and some, what is that?
That feeling of, you always kind of, your mind goes back to those days of that person back then that felt so afraid and vulnerable and in the shadows. And so my heart feels saddened for that younger woman, but my heart rejoices for the woman that I have become and that I will continue to become, because I did decide that I'm going to overcome this. I will not let it defeat me, and it definitely won't define me. So that's what I feel, and it does. It makes me very emotional, and it makes my heart hurt that we have to have these conversations, that these things still happen, that man's inhumanity to man, and then everybody has to take a side and say, I believe, I don't believe. And the other thing too is it's never too late to tell your story. I know in the media, they say that happened 30 years ago, 40 years ago. If that was really the case, why didn't they tell somebody then? Don't listen to them. They're idiots. Don't listen to them.
It's impacting how you are now and how you've lived.
Exactly.
Of that
so
incident.
it's like it happened every day until you start to deal with it in some way. Every day, it's the same day for you. It's like waking up to Groundhog's Day. You repeat, repeat, repeat until you decide to break that cycle and say, I'm not going to continue to allow this to control me and dominate my life. I choose to take my life back, to take my power back. And that is how you take your power back.
And that is your mindset. So what was that? What was the paradigm shift? What was the moment that caused you to have that paradigm shift in your mindset and choose to no longer be a victim, but to be not just a survivor, but to regain your voice and amplify your voice, not only for yourself, but for others? So what was that?
One, I have a young adult now, daughter, and she looks up to me a lot, and she always has. And when she became an adult, she started telling me things that she saw in me when she was coming up, and all she ever saw was just strength, and she was becoming a younger woman, and she was like, Mom, I want to be strong like you, and you don't let anything bother you. And so I had to let her know, it's not that. It's not that it's not that it doesn't bother me. There's a lot of things that have bothered me, but I choose not to let them dominate me. And so that's really what made me decide, you know what? No, I need more people to know that this happens to everyday individuals that may look like they're a pillar of strength and all of this knowledge and experience. Well, yeah, I do have a lot of experience, some of them very, very bad. But from those very, very bad things, I have triumphed and become someone that I feel like I have grown from these experiences, not because I wanted them, not because they were great, but because they have allowed me to be used by God in a way that I feel like He has put me in a position to be able to minister to other people's souls who need this, who need to know there is an alternative to staying locked into that shell of confusion and fear and embarrassment and shame. So
And guilt,
that was kind of a pivotal
anxiety,
point for me.
and guilt and anxiety and
Oh,
trust
yeah.
and mistrust and all of that.
Oh, yeah.
One thing that you said really stood out to me when you were speaking to your daughter. You said that it's not that things don't bother you, but you're not going to allow it to dominate you. That
Yeah.
was a very powerful statement, and I just really wanted to bring that out. Bother, but not dominate.
Definitely not dominated.
That
No.
should, that should be a hashtag or something like that.
Yeah.
Bother, not dominated.
I'll keep that in mind. We can go ahead and put those on t-shirts.
Right, right. Bother, not dominated.
Exactly. And that kind of too was like when I decided that I was going to start my company, and I was trying to decide what the name was, and I was talking to our friend Cece, and I was like, I can't decide what I want to name it. And she was like, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to empower people, to know that they can grow past their experiences. She's like, well, then that should be it. And so that's how empowering growth came to be, because of a conversation she and I had. And so she asked me, she's like, well, what is the message that you want people to know? I said, well, I want them to know, one, that you must have goals for yourself and dreams for yourself, and don't let anything deter those dreams and goals for yourself. And if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. Dream
Well,
bigger.
haven't we all heard that statement? But
And it is so true, so true.
how many people move beyond actually hearing it, but actually implementing that? And so,
Yeah.
I'm going to segue that into, what would be a call to action for those that are listening in? First, a takeaway, two takeaways, and then a call to action.
A call to action. Let's see. Two takeaways would be that. Do you mind if I read something that it's a short poem that I wanted to read it. It's by an author called Daniel Koki, and it
No,
is
go.
okay. Your trauma is valid, even if other people have experienced worse. Even if someone else who went through the same experience doesn't feel debilitated by it, even if it could have been avoided, even if it happened a long time ago, even if no one knows, your trauma is real and valid, and you deserve a space to talk about it. It isn't desperate or pathetic or attention seeking. It's self care. It's inconceivably brave. And regardless of the magnitude of your struggle, you're allowed to take care of yourself by processing and unloading some of the pain you carry. Your pain matters, your experience matters, and your healing matters. Nothing and no one can take that away.
Hmm, that's powerful.
So, my
That's
call to
powerful.
action would be to get the help that you need, reach out to someone, because you don't know if the struggle that you endure is going to be the one thing that helps to save the life of someone else that you're going to meet. But you can't save that life if you don't save your own life first.
Hmm.
So put on your own mask, and then you can help put a mask on someone else to help them to breathe, to take in oxygen. It's like on you on the plane. I used to always wonder as a mother, why do they tell you to put your oxygen mask on before you put it on your kid? You're a mom,
Right.
right? And you're like, wait, if I'm going to go down, I'd rather die and let my child live. And so I was sitting there thinking about that, going, that doesn't make sense. They obviously have no kids. They don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to put the mask on my kids first before I put the oxygen on myself. And so then one day I was like, well, what happens if I don't have oxygen and I'm struggling and they see me struggling? They're going to take their mask off because they're afraid for mom. And then we're
Mhm.
all going to perish, and nobody grows that way, and nobody will survive.
Yeah,
So take care of yourself so you can be there to take care of somebody else. So
exactly. So let me clarify that. When she said mask, when she said put on the mask, she was referring to putting on the oxygen
breath,
mask. We
life.
want, right, right, right. We want
Not
to
the mask of coverage, the mask of oxygen, of freeing yourself and oxygenating. Yeah. Life
we want to
force.
take off the mask that's hiding the pain. We want to take off the mask of strength because the true strength lies in vulnerability
Yes.
and authenticity.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you so much for being vulnerable, for being transparent, for being authentic, and actually for being accountable, to continue on your journey to healing and helping others along their way. But one more powerful thing that you said that I want to make sure that our listening audience hears is that you cannot help others before you help yourself. And so when you made the decision, and that was that pivotal point for you, when you saw that you needed to get the help for your daughter because you didn't want her to have this false picture of strength. And it's not that you intentionally
No.
intended to put forth a false presentation of strength, but that was how you were dealing with everything that you had encountered up to that point. And so the strength is in the vulnerability. The
Yes.
strength is in the transparency. The strength is in removing the mask and confronting the ugly, painful truth and holding those accountable because silence breeds sickness.
Yes.
So I want to thank you, Ruby, for coming on and sharing your truth and being vulnerable and showing how you've turned your tragedies, plural,
Yeah.
into a triumph. And so I want you to tell people, how can they reach out to you to support your cause or to support your organization or to be a part of everything that you're doing? And what are you doing?
So, one, I like to get express my negative energy out by doing physical activities. So people think like, oh my gosh, and Susan's probably laughing now because I'm always like, oh, it's the end of the day. I'm going to the gym. She's like, I'm going to drink some wine, which is
Most
fine.
definitely, we got
It's okay.
most definitely we got an appointment at 9 p.m. tonight for some physical fitness.
Oh yes, yes,
virtual, virtual.
virtual physical
The caveat
fitness.
during this COVID-19 is virtual. We're doing
Yes,
the
it
social
is
distancing, but not the social isolation. So
definitely
anyhow,
not.
right.
Definitely don't isolate. But yeah, so definitely get physically active, be good to yourself.
Mhm.
I do yoga, I do meditation, I just do quiet me time. I call it a mecation. And sometimes I have to take several mecations during the day when I'm working, just a 2 minute break from everything to go, okay, you need some Ruby time.
Mhm.
Close it all out, release it all out. None of that matters. You are here, you're safe, you're amazing, you're brilliant, you're a survivor, you're an overcomer, and you're going to help to empower other people.
Mhm.
So that's what I do. So my organization is Empowering Growth LLC, and I gave you the web address is www.empoweringgrowth.virtuagym.com, and that's my fitness, but also my website and my chat portal. They can access me there, or they can reach me via my email, lifestyle.fitness_coach@yahoo.com.
And what if people want to follow you on Instagram? What is your IG?
Oh, on Instagram. Oh goodness. You know what? I have to send it to you so you can post it because I have to apologize that social media has not been my greatest gift. So I do have my Facebook page is Empowered to Grow, but my Instagram I do have, but I'm so seldom on there that I'll have to tell you what the name of it is.
Okay, well, we will make sure that we post it in the link below in the comment section below. I did want to again thank you, Ruby, for showing up and sharing your story. I also, as we promised, wanted to provide you all with resources. So if you or someone that you know is encountering the struggles from being the victim of military sexual trauma, we have some resources for you. The first resource is called protectourdefenders.com, and there's a plethora of resources on that website, and all of this information will be below in the comment section, but I wanted to share it briefly. And then there's rain.org, RAIN.org. That's a phenomenal organization that deals with not only sexual trauma, but domestic assault as well. And then there's an organization, a foundation out in Texas. I believe it's Galveston, Texas. It's called LoneSurvivorFoundation.org, and they specifically focus on individuals that have encountered military sexual trauma and having experienced the retreat some years back. I can tell you that it is a phenomenal source and resource to help you on the path, on your journey to healing and moving beyond your traumatic event, so that you too can turn your tragedy into a triumph. So those are the three main resources that I wanted to provide to you. So again, that's protectourdefenders.com, that's rain.org, and then there's specifically for those veterans and active duty members that have suffered military sexual trauma, it's called LoneSurvivorFoundation.org. And they have a plethora of things that they share with you and resources they provide you and activities that they should provide you to help you on the journey to navigating through your incident and your experience so that you can continue to live a great quality of life. And so before we end, I wanted to give you, Ruby, an opportunity to share any parting words, for our listening audience, any words of encouragement. Look directly into the screen and just share.
Well, first I want to tell you, I do know my Instagram because I felt convicted. I'm like, oh my goodness. So it is Ruby. Hey, I call it action. I got it. Ruby Williams 2016 is my Instagrams.
Okay, Ruby
2016.
Williams.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Be good to yourself. Be good to yourself and know that you're worthy of it. And don't accept what somebody else says your value is. You are valuable. There are people that love you. We love you. We support you. You are not alone. Get help and don't live in silence and fear. Take your power back.
Well, and for those listening in, Ruby has definitely taken her power back today. So we want to thank you so much. And what our objective here is not only to highlight individuals that have turned their tragedies into triumph, but to continue to raise the awareness and keep it at the forefront, because military sexual trauma is something that is a black mark on the military. However, for those service members that have served honorably and have been victims to the assault of other service members, is something that we continue to need to link arms and circle around those that have served and have endured the most atrocious assault that anyone can ever endure. And so let us continue to use our voices to raise the call, to support our brothers and sisters in arms that have endured, and show them the path to overcoming. And so with that being said, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in. Be sure to tune in next week as we highlight another individual who has turned their tragedy into a triumph. This is Michelle of Michelle Speaks. If you hide it, you can't heal it. Your life recovery coach, author, and most importantly, advocate. We are signing off. So thank you again, Ruby. Take care, be well, and God bless. And we will see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.